Yeah, that's fine.
I'm going to start the recording and we'll let everyone in. And thank you again for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited too.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're still waiting on everyone to get logged in, but we'll get started right at 11:30. Victoria, one thing I forgot to ask, do you want people to put their information or put their questions in the chat if they
I
have any?
was literally just going to message you that if you don't mind. I would appreciate people putting their name and like their organization maybe in the chat or somehow. And then questions, I prefer to take at the end.
Okay.
So we can put them in chat or we can, popcorn it, however.
Okay. And I'll kind of monitor the chat while you're presenting. So, and then at the end, we can, like you said, we'll address all the questions then.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you all for joining us. We've got just a few more minutes and we'll get started at 11:30. While everyone's joining, I'll go ahead and say I had a few people ask if like a spouse or a relative could join today's session. And the answer is absolutely yes. If you know someone that you want to send that link to that might be able to pop on, feel free to just forward them the Zoom link. Anyone who wants to can join us. We'll figure out certificates later who needs what. But I think the information is very relevant to a lot of people. And so feel free to share with anyone. The session is also being recorded, and so that will be up on our website if you want to share that afterwards as well. We may have a few more that join us, but I see 11:30, so we'll go ahead and get started and be mindful of your time. Thank you all for joining us today. I know this time of year it can be crazy, not only at school with the end of the semester and testing and everything that's going on, but also in your personal lives with commitments and family and all the things that the holidays bring. So congratulations for taking a few minutes for yourself today. Hopefully you'll hear some information that will assist you as we go through the holidays and maybe even help you assist others who could be struggling during this time. My name is Suzanne Jones. I'm the Safe Schools Coordinator with the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I'm hosting today's workshop, but our presenter is Miss Victoria Spradley. She is with UAMS with the AR Connect division, and she'll introduce herself and give you her presentation in just a minute. A couple housekeeping things. Along the, let's see, make sure I turn it on. Along the bottom of the screen, you should see closed captioning or live transcript. If you would like to turn that on, you'll be able to see the transcript across the bottom of the screen. There's some options where you can make it larger, smaller, move it wherever you need to do. So make use of that if it benefits you. As we go through the session, if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. We'll monitor that, and then Victoria will answer questions at the end. This session is being recorded, and so we'll make sure that the recording gets put up on the Safe Schools page. So it will be available. It usually takes a couple of days to get that turned around, but we'll get it up and we'll make sure everyone knows how to access it. I also have a mailing list. I think probably a lot of you are on that mailing list, but I'm going to put a link in the chat for you if you want to sign up for the mailing list and get these messages automatic. We also have a very short evaluation that I would like for you to fill out. I'll put that link in the chat as well. And then certificates. I know everyone's interested in getting their certificates for this. It usually takes me about a week to turn the certificates around, but I know this time of year, some of you might be able to leave school a little bit early at the break if you've got your hours in. So I have made a commitment that before I leave today, I will get everyone's certificate out that attends. So I will make sure those are out before I walk out of the office today. I'm going to put several links in the chat, like I said, a link to the webpage where you can find the recording, a link to the mailing list if you need to sign up, a link to the evaluation, please fill that out for us. And then if you are, I know sometimes teachers might gather up in the library or in one classroom and kind of watch as a group. So if there are multiple people watching with you, I need whoever is logged in, whoever's name is on the screen, if you would please send me an email and let me know who is in your room so I can get certificates to everybody. Also, if you were forwarded this link from someone other than myself or through ESC Works and you need a certificate, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Just send me an email and say, hey, I need a certificate. But if you registered through ESC Works or you've already communicated with me and I've sent you the link, you're on my list and I will get you registered and get that certificate out today. So without further ado, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. I'll be glad to answer them. But I'm going to turn it over to Victoria Spradley with AR Connect.
All right, let me get my screen going here. Okay, can y'all see that?
Here, now it's up.
Okay. And okay, so thank you for that introduction. I am Victoria Spradley. I am the outreach coordinator for Arkansas Connect, which is a program here at UAMS. I'm really excited to be joining y'all today and speaking over y'all's lunch break. And I hope that this is information that y'all will receive well. It's going to be all about what AR Connect is and the free mental health services that we provide to anybody within the state, but then also more specifically, how we can take care of our mental health over the holidays, because somehow it's already December and we are approaching the holidays full speed ahead. And right now you're probably seeing a lot more commercials or hearing the holiday music about how it's the most wonderful time of the year, right? Well, it's also important to note that the holidays actually bring up a spectrum of emotions for different people. So not to mention that we're also navigating an ongoing pandemic right now, which only adds additional factors to consider during this holiday season and how those are impacting our mental health. So in today's session, which is twofold really, we will first do an overview of the Arkansas Connect or AR Connect program. And then we'll move forward to the second section, which is going to be more about the mental health and the holidays, which of course is very relevant right now. And in that section is where we'll talk about some of the different emotions people may feel during this season, how to prep for holiday breaks as employers or teachers, and really just as an individual, what you can do to prepare for your break or time off from work, tips to help you have a stress-free holiday, and then even tips for after the holidays when maybe you have to return to a classroom full of students or you have to go back into the office, because unfortunately that day does come. And then I'll try to leave some time for questions at the end. So without further ado, the Arkansas Connect program, if you haven't already heard about us, is a free comprehensive behavioral health treatment or substance abuse program as well. And when I say comprehensive, I just mean that our team of professionals are considering all of the factors that can contribute to one's mental health. So that's going to include your social and environmental factors as well as health factors, for example. Really, we started in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that was to ensure that anybody within the state of Arkansas could still safely access mental health care while maintaining the new guidelines that were put in place during the pandemic, such as physical and social distancing, and the other complexities that were added to our lives. Like, for example, parents and teachers were juggling new routines of homeschooling, and were our kids going to be in school or were they going to be at home? And perhaps that was leaving them with very limited time for themselves, or no time to seek help that they may have needed. So that's where AR Connect comes into play, and you'll learn more reasons how we are helping overcome those barriers to accessing mental health care in just a moment. But our program would not exist if it weren't for our grants from SAMHSA and the Department of Human Services. And we also now have some funding from Blue and You, which will help us with our campaign for the K-12 population. So we're very appreciative for our funding. Now, as outreach coordinator, I talk about this program all the time and I never get tired of it because I believe in it wholeheartedly, and we are doing incredible things to overcome common barriers to accessing mental health care. While I could talk about it all day long, there are some key things that I hope you will take away at the end of this session. And it really boils down to about 6 things that I would like you to know. And this first one is just like it states in our logo, is that we are a virtual mental health and substance abuse program. And this just means that our licensed mental health professionals are able to help our patients with strategies for managing both severe and non-severe mental illnesses. So think about the most common of like stress, anxiety, even depression, but then think about trauma and grief, for example. But then we also are able to help our patients find appropriate alcohol and substance abuse resources. So we'll help them with getting connected to more intensive treatment if they need that as well. And then other concerns would be things like social isolation right now is very common concern, especially among our older adults. So just keep that in mind, that we can help with anything from stress, grief, substance abuse, really anything. And if you don't know where to start with what you need help with, our therapists can help you kind of navigate what should be a priority. Another way that we help overcome barriers to accessing mental health care is by being accessible 24/7. And this means you can literally call us anytime to start our program. And we have 2 phone lines, the local number and the 800 toll-free number. that are accessible 24/7, including on the holidays, which I can't stress enough right now as those are approaching and offices are closed. Maybe your local therapist or person you would seek help from is not in office during this time or something. Our phones will be open on the holidays, so please remember that. Although I do want to clarify that although our phones are open 24/7, we are not a crisis line. And that means that you won't speak to a therapist at the time of your first call, but you will speak to a registered nurse. And our registered nurses are trained to direct callers that are in an emergency to their nearest emergency department. Non-emergency callers who are interested in AR Connect, want to talk to a mental health professional, or simply want to learn more about the services we could provide for them, they will then be scheduled with our program. So we are not a crisis line, but we are accessible 24/7 because nobody should ever have to wait to make that first step and get the help when they need it. Thanks to all of that grant funding that I mentioned previously, all of our services are free, and I mean they are entirely free. So our patients will never pay a copay. They should never receive a bill from us, and I say shouldn't receive a bill because mistakes happen. A couple of patients have received bills before, but guess what? They call us, they let us know, and we straighten that out with our billing office. And it is no hassle to them then because all of our services are at no cost to our patients, and we could not be more proud of that. In fact, you don't even have to have health insurance to use AR Connect. So cost of healthcare, which is particularly the cost of mental health care, I should say, is a huge barrier to seeking it, unfortunately. So us being able to provide it for free is wonderful. And the fact that you don't have to have health insurance, well, that just cuts down on costs even more because sometimes you would have to have a referral from another provider to get mental health care, and we eliminate that as well. You don't have to have a referral to call us, so you're not paying twice the copay and getting another bill. Everything that we provide you is for free. And then, like I already established, we were created in response to the pandemic, and we wanted people to have safe access to their mental health care. That's why everything we do is always virtual. So that first phone call you make, well, that's by phone. You can do that from wherever. And then all of your therapy sessions are by video. So you will need a video capable device to complete the therapy sessions. But as long as you're within the state, you can do that from the privacy of your own home or wherever you have a private, safe environment to do so. And we do use a secure, confidential platform. Everything we do is still HIPAA compliant. But this virtual aspect has allowed us to reach so many people throughout the state and all corners of the state who would not have been able to travel to us, or unfortunately, we can also say that there's still that stigma surrounding seeking mental health care. And by being able to do this from the privacy of one's own home, they're not having to enter the office, and nobody has to know. And it's also still keeping people physically, socially distanced and safe during the pandemic. And if, of course, there is sometimes a limitation of having internet access in your own private environment. And if that is the case, we can often find callers, free Wi-Fi, or community centers, schools often have worked with us to provide their students a safe private environment to be able to still receive our services. And another purpose of AR Connect is to provide short-term virtual therapy services. And so this means our patients are going to receive typically up to 6 therapy sessions, but the goal is all the while to still be working to establish them a long-term care provider near them if that is needed. And the therapists are going to be able to recognize that need from the get-go, from their first appointment with the patient. So up to 6 therapy sessions will help them find a long-term care provider if needed. And we even have psychiatrists on our team who can help provide additional consultation services as well as medication management appointments during their time in the AR Connect program. I mentioned earlier that social and environmental factors also contribute to one's mental health. Well, another wonderful thing about the AR Connect program is its care coordination services that it provides. And this actually includes resource coordination and a resource center, if you will. So our care coordinators work very hard to connect our patients to resources available near them, be it food, shelter, diaper drives, other healthcare services, transportation services to and from these healthcare visits, etc. Our care coordinators are eager to help them find whatever they need. And something that's really neat is that maybe you don't need to talk to a therapist, but you could use help finding resources, right? Well, you can actually just call our resource center directly and the care coordinators will be happy to assist you. So you can call the 355-6934 number if you only need resources, or better yet, we actually adapted this information to be on our homepage of our website. So there's a resource tab to the right on our homepage, and you can easily browse by region of the state a variety of resources. Of course, it's not exhaustive. That would be very difficult to maintain, but it sure does have a lot of key resources and even a section for statewide resources. And that link is super easy to share in an email or text and just distribute to anybody that you may know in need of any type of resource anywhere in the state. So now that you know all the things about AR Connect, it still might be a little unclear what it really looks like, the whole process of being a patient of an entirely virtual clinic. So I'll just run through this quickly for the sake of time, but it starts with that phone call to our Institute for Digital Health. And that's where your triage nurses are going to direct emergencies to the ED and then schedule non-emergency callers with AR Connect for that 30-minute intake phone call. And during the intake, they'll collect the demographics, they'll assess your immediate needs like food, shelter, and then they will assign you your therapist. This is when the video component comes into play. So for that diagnostic assessment with the therapist, I know it's a rather lengthy 90-minute to 2-hour appointment, but that's where your therapist really is going to be able to collect your pertinent health history and some of your family's health history. They will talk to you about why you are seeking AR Connect and help you establish the goals for your treatment. And then they will set up your weekly individual therapy sessions. And we recommend scheduling those on a weekly basis. And those are typically about an hour long. And during those is when the therapists can also help identify if you have any new resource concerns, and they'll get you back in touch with our care coordinators. And that also is where they'll help you get referrals to other resources and providers. Okay, so now we will talk more specifically about your mental health and the holidays. And this is really all about making the most of your holiday. So as you know, as all the music and films say, it's the most wonderful time of the year, right? Well, it's filled with, reconnecting with friends and family and gift exchanges. But for others, the hustle and bustle may be stressful. The reconnections may cause anxiety, and maybe even the empty seat at the dinner table could be a painful reminder of a family member, a loved one who has passed. So for everyone during this season, it is very important to recognize and be respectful that holidays may be sensitive and they are unique experiences for our neighbors, for our classmates, for our students, coworkers. But if we can recognize the potential stressors surrounding the holidays, and if we have the tools ready to help cope with them, then we should still be able to enjoy them and mostly have a stress-free holiday. So when it comes to it being a very positive experience, there's lots of reasons why the holidays are very exciting and are filled with positive happenings for people. But, a few of them include reconnecting with the friends and family, like I've mentioned. Also, spiritual and religious activities are happening more often, it seems like, during this season, and it's a very important time for many. Then there are the celebrations. So, whether it's your work holiday party or a family party, your class party, I always looked forward to that. That was always so fun. And then gift exchanges. I mean, who doesn't love to exchange nice tokens with their loved ones and friends they care for? So, um, but then there's the extended time off school or work, and I'm sure none of y'all would would know why that's exciting. But there's a little star next to that, and that's for a reason, and you'll see why in just a second. So just keep in mind, holidays can be very positive for some, but they can be negative for others, unfortunately. And 64% of people actually with mental illness report that the holidays make their symptoms worse. And even those who are not diagnosed with a mental illness can still experience increased anxiety and depression, among many other emotions that are not so positive. It may be the holiday hustle and bustle. Maybe someone you know or yourself has social anxiety, doesn't want to be in crowds, doesn't want to be pressured to have to interact with family, friends, and maybe they just don't like being in these holiday party environments, for example. There's expectations that we put on ourselves and others, but it's just not always fun for everybody. And it can be very stressful and overwhelming, even. And then here's where that star comes into play is with the extended time off school or work. Really, this may be a negative thing or provoke negative feelings from some because it's a change in routine. You're taking kids out of school for a couple of weeks, and while it's a great break, it should be used to restore some energy and kind of be able to engage in more playful things throughout the day and see new people. It sometimes may be removing them from maybe a reliable source of shelter and food and even healthy social interactions. Perhaps a student relies on this school for their breakfast and lunch, and maybe them thinking about the upcoming weeks off of school, is stressful because they are worried that they won't have enough food on the table for their whole family who's going to be out of school or something, or maybe for their parents who don't get the 2 weeks off work and they can't afford childcare. Those are just things to consider. But even for teachers or bosses, employers, if they know of these concerns that their employees and students are experiencing, then that can maybe cause more stress for them as well if they know that their students and staff won't be in the best environment when they return home as well. So just keep that in mind. And by keeping that in mind and remembering that everybody experiences different emotions around the holidays, that can help us be more aware that maybe we need to do a few things as employers, advisors, teachers to be sensitive to the needs of those around us and those that look up to us, maybe. And we can do this by checking in with our students, faculty, staff. Check in with your neighbors, check in with your coworkers before you leave for break. And this will give them an opportunity to voice maybe their joys and concerns, right? Like I said, maybe they are anxious because they may not have food security. Maybe they won't have shelter, or maybe they're feeling embarrassed because they may not be able to exchange gifts with their family members. Whatever it may be, these joys and concerns, they might help you also understand others' behaviors. So it might help you understand why a student hasn't been acting themselves or is, lashing out, or is being super reserved. Maybe it would help you understand your colleagues' behaviors lately as well. But also in checking in, it's normalizing really the conversations around mental health care, which definitely need to be taking place more often. And by doing it before this upcoming holiday break, you can kind of set the precedent then for your classroom or for your office, your workplace, your home environment. And then you can continue this in the months to come and just do a regular check-in and just make sure people are okay, or if they have joys and concerns, that they know who they can talk to. And that kind of comes down to this next point where you're creating a platform to remind each other of the resources that are available while they're out of school or away from their office. I was talking to Suzanne earlier, and I know that it's kind of per school, like what behavioral health services are available. But even if those are they available when the kids are out of this school campus? I don't know the answer to that, but making sure that the kids instead do know who they can call, maybe have a list of people that are safe to talk to for them and that would answer if they were ever feeling isolated or down. And then same for employees and your coworkers. It's making sure that if employee assistance isn't open over the holidays, making sure then that they know alternative resources. And that's where AR Connect can come into play. And this is kind of a delicate thing, but maybe even if you recognize a particular family that could potentially be in need of extra resources this time of year, or may need to talk to somebody, um, considering how to provide our information to them could be very beneficial, so that they at least know that if they don't know where else to turn, they could call AR Connect, because our phones are open 24/7 and could at least help them find resources. And then more specifically, you can, maybe based on their joys and concerns, talk about ways to cope with the potential stressors they might experience, or really just general tips for everybody to keep in mind to have a stress-free holiday. And that's what we're going to get into over the next several slides. So first and foremost, check your expectations. Do this before your holiday break, before your time off from work, and maybe you even need to do this before each specific commitment that you've made, or event, if you will. And it's because during the holidays in particular, we're often placing a ridiculous amount of pressure on ourselves and on others, usually those we love the most, right, to act a certain way during the holidays. And I can't explain why we do that, but most of us fall into that trap. But then it's, of course, no surprise that we feel disappointed or maybe even angry when these unrealistic expectations aren't met. So ask yourself before your event, or before you leave office, or before your students head out the door on the last day of class this semester, like, are my expectations of my students while they're gone to, keep up reading a certain number of minutes a day, or to have this big project done and make it, lavish looking, or something like that? Is that realistic? And if it's not, what would be a realistic expectation? Maybe you need to ask yourself, are my expectations of my social interactions at this particular party or at my family lunch, are these being realistic? What am I basing these on? You're basing them on, well, the feel-good holiday Hollywood film, then maybe your expectations won't be met. But you don't necessarily have to base them either on what happened 3 years ago at Christmas Eve dinner. Consider, where you are in your life now and where everybody else in your social circle or work circle is in their situations as well. And that can kind of help you base your expectations. And then, of course, be prepared to discuss these expectations of others with them if needed. And that is going to kind of tie into this next page, which is all about setting boundaries. And it is so important to set boundaries this time of year, and always, but especially over the holidays, because boundaries are going to help us prevent burnout and exhaustion. And boundaries will be unique to each person. They can be put in place for a variety of different areas of your life, for different factors. They might be boundaries unique to each event, but there are some common ones that I think just we can all benefit from being reminded of right now. And the first is financial. This also ties into the pressure and expectations we put on ourselves to give lavishly and act a certain way. But please don't overextend yourself financially. If you do that, then you're setting yourself up to experience the January financial blues, if you will. And nothing can be more stressful than having financial issues. So stick to a budget, do your best you can to stick to a budget. And instead, let's try to teach our students and coworkers the value of kind words, gestures, homemade items instead of store-bought gift exchanges. Even doing a baked good exchange instead, having a potluck instead of going out to a fancy restaurant, or if you are a teacher and you're trying to provide for your class and you didn't get donations for it this year or something, then try to shop creatively and work on a budget and find bargains and do things that really provoke thoughtfulness and they come from the heart rather than the statement they are making. For example, I had my coworkers, I didn't have them, I asked them to practice gratitude with me around the time of Thanksgiving, and we've kind of continued to do that. And I couldn't be more proud of us because we all decided basically that we are going to do a words of affirmation type of gift exchange around the office, just for words of encouragement and positive quotes to share with each other. So we all have a little bag decorated hanging outside of our office doors, and everybody got note cards, and you just write a positive note about your coworker and put it in their bag, and they can read it on their own time. But it's been really encouraging. So do something like that. And then socially, what social boundaries can you put in place so that you don't get burnt out over the holidays? Well, get out your calendar, don't overcommit. So when you get your invites, please check your calendar before you commit to the next invitation that you receive. And try to visualize month wide. So print out a monthly calendar or look at your phone if you want to, but consider the weeks ahead. That'll help you visualize what's to come in set amounts of time. It'll help you see how much time you have to recharge in between them. So pick the events that would be most important to you that you absolutely don't want to miss and go and enjoy them, absolutely. But then make sure too that you are giving yourself some days or nights at least between each event and block those off on your calendar so that you get some downtime. And however you want to spend that downtime, whether it's volunteering or practicing self-care alone, or even if it's just more intimate time with your family in your home, it's important to get that downtime to recharge, because we don't want to be running on fumes over the holidays, because that also can impact your immune health, which can impact your mental health. And then, of course, set time limits for your gatherings, particularly those on school or weeknights. And that's to help you make sure you get plenty of sleep, again, so that you're not running on fumes, so you can keep going to all of the other commitments you've made. And then when it comes to time off work and school, plan ahead. I know that's easier said than done, but try to actually leave your work at the office. Or if you're like me, I do have a little trouble with that sometimes. And that's because of mostly the role I'm in, but I imagine that teachers and other bosses, they might feel the same, where they want their students to know that they can be reached if it's an emergency, or if they need somebody, if they need some help, that you can still be reached. So instead, maybe decide to set a limit of how much work you'll do while you're out of the office. A great example of this that I'm going to try to do this holiday is to only check my email for 15 minutes a day, and I'll only do it on the weekdays or business days, if you will. And this is something that it is more than appropriate to communicate these boundaries then to your colleagues, to your students, to your family members, if it comes to like a social boundary. But especially when it comes to work and school, know that it is more than appropriate to communicate these boundaries to them. That way they know okay, well, Miss Jones said she checks her email at 10 a.m. So I better email her before 10 a.m. or it won't be until tomorrow when she'll probably get back to me. And that's okay, but that helps you um, create clear boundaries and not then be tied to your phone. You don't have to think about it again for the rest of the day. But try doing that the best you can if you get the time off. And this page, which is all about taking care of yourself, I know you've heard all of these before. That's because they're tried and true, and as painful as they are to hear, we're going to go through some of these. Um, Taking care of yourself is so important because your mental and physical health are connected, and you don't want to sacrifice your sleep or your exercise, your physical health over the holidays just to squeeze in more commitments that could potentially lead to more burnout or feelings of burnout. So continue to exercise, prioritize that, make that time for yourself to exercise, be outside. We know that exercising releases endorphins, and endorphins make you happy because they work on your pleasure receptors. And then also, this time of year, we are more prone to experience seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder than we would, say in the summertime. So be mindful that getting the most amount of sunlight you can during the day can help combat the symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. Better yet, you can exercise outside and get the benefits of both all in the same amount of time, which is valuable right now still, but you still want to make sure you're making time for yourself to do that. And then sleeping. Sleeping is always important. You don't want to oversleep, but you certainly want to get your minimum number of hours. Probably 6 to 8 hours still is required for most of our age range on this call today. So just keep that in mind that sleep is important, and that does play a role in your immune system. Your immune system requires sleep. And then when you are feeling overwhelmed, how can you take care of yourself other than storming away from the table? Because that won't help anybody. But what you could do is, politely excuse yourself, or after the lunch, find a quiet corner and do some deep breathing, practice some mindfulness. Take even just 5 minutes and close your eyes and feel the ground beneath your feet, and then feel the sensation in your knees and work your way up all the way to your head. And then just release all the tension from your muscles and just be mindful of the sensations you feel and the weight that literally just melts out of your body when you practice this. That can be very beneficial. And it takes next to no time, but I mean, the reward is great there. So try that if you start to feel overwhelmed during the holidays. And then the most dreaded one, I think, is trying to practice your healthy eating during the holidays. Uh, Definitely easier said than done because there are so many yummy holiday foods. People like to try out new recipes, and most of them, though, are going to be the sugary, salty treats or alcohol punches, things like that, that uh, they're just not the best for you. And I'm not one to encourage a restrictive diet. You shouldn't do that. But there are studies that have found a correlation between diets high in all these processed sugars and actually the worsening symptoms of mood disorders like depression. So be mindful of what you're eating. Maybe when you go to an event or your family lunch, absolutely you can indulge, but maybe be mindful of how much you will indulge and set that limit, if you will, to how many pieces of pie. Or try the technique of, if I'm going to have the piece of grandma's pie, then I'm going to also grab a handful of the fruit salad or something from the vegetable tray. And that's just because everything in moderation is better. And then, general rule of thumb, avoid alcohol and drugs. Alcohol is a depressant that seems to be looked over a lot. So, just general rule of thumb, avoiding alcohol and drugs will probably lead to more beneficial experiences over the holidays. And then another really wonderful way to lower your stress over the holidays is actually to give back to others. So, volunteering to help others not only can lift your spirits, but it's also going to lift the spirits of those you're helping. And that's a beautiful thing. And then also consider that it's going to create maybe some new opportunities to meet new people and have new social interactions. I mean, maybe it's going to be your chance to step away from the family that's staying all in your house for, a week, and you need just a few hours to be around some fresh faces. Well, this your family can't blame you if you say you're going to volunteer to help some others. So and with that, though, it is important to remember, with all this pressure financially during the holidays to give and to act a certain way and to spend a certain way, donating your time can be just as impactful as donating your money. And the chances are you might even feel better about giving your time than you would donating the money. And by being involved in serving a meal to your local soup kitchen or organizing the food pantry at your church, you might feel better than if you just donated the money to supply those things. You can even, to get some fresh air, here we go, to get some sunlight and be volunteering, you can ring a Salvation Army bell, and that'll help combat the effects of seasonal depression. It could, I mean, we can think of that as exercise as well, so that'll release more endorphins. Um, but then, volunteering to wrap gifts for, schools and churches, community groups, a lot of them are sponsoring angel tree families or similar types of causes. And volunteering to wrap the gifts can be a fun social interaction with um, like-minded individuals and other people too that are there. And but really delivering them too can be a very powerful way to see the direct impact that you're making on somebody else's holiday. So just consider that volunteering is very powerful. And of course, we don't do this enough. And it's a little more of a serious note, but seek support if you need it. And I know that that can be a very difficult step for people to take, but that is something that Arkansas Connect or AR Connect has been working on, is by being accessible 24/7. When you are ready to call, you can call. You don't have to wait. You don't have to put it on your to-do list and snooze it until the next day. And next thing you know, it's, a weekend and you can't answer, you can't call a clinic line. We are accessible 24/7. So if your symptoms worsen and you need to speak to a mental health professional, please consider calling AR Connect. Like I said, we're open 24/7 by phone. Minors just have to have a guardian's consent to call us, and they do need to be on the phone for the first phone call. And you have to be within the state of Arkansas, but that's it. Those are the only things that you have to do to call us. And I want to emphasize the within the state of Arkansas, because over the holidays, a lot of people travel. And if you are the household where people are coming to visit you and they're staying with you and any type of need arises, please let them know that they can use AR Connect as long as they are within the state at the time of their call. And then, of course, like I've said already, our virtual resource center is always accessible no matter where you are in the state, any time of day or night. You can check there first, too, if you're just needing resources. And for our students or employees, but I would consider this for students even more, is making sure that they do know ahead of time who they can reach out to when they're feeling isolated or down during their break. Because maybe they're the individuals in their home are not the people that would be most understanding of their feelings during the holidays. So just making sure that everybody knows where they can seek the support to will help provide a stress-free holiday if you already know where to go when you need it. And then after the holidays, when we return to school and the workplace, still it is important to be mindful of all of the different experiences that we've had. With all the expectations and pressure we put on ourselves, it can be super easy to then make comparisons to others. And whether that's comparing what my classmate got for Christmas from Santa, or the vacation they took skiing and I stayed in town because my family couldn't afford to, whatever it is, or even comparing how your family looks and the interactions that you have with your families to your friends or coworkers. friends and families. We need to try to avoid making these comparisons. And by returning to the workplace or classroom environment and practicing gratitude with our students and staff, we can try to refocus on what we have and be appreciative of that rather than what we lack, if you will. And by practicing gratitude, studies have actually found that it improves our social interactions and our satisfaction with them. And then it even is associated with well-being. So there are wonderful benefits to practicing gratitude, not just over the holidays, but there's no better time to start than now, and especially after they come back to class, you can try doing a gratitude letter. And this is a sample of one that I pulled from therapistaid.com, which is a great resource that we use with our program a lot for like worksheets that we send home with our patients. But this is a great activity designed for kids because it's a fill in the blank and it helps them, pick someone or something that they are thankful for and then list out reasons why they appreciate it and how they feel when they're with that person, when they laugh with them, etc. And then another way to maybe do it, because you could have the students, if they wanted to, read those to the class, or maybe that could be a more personal letter of gratitude. But a good interactive one with your class or office mates would be to keep a jar of good things. And this would be simply providing a particular gratitude prompt, like please list something that made you laugh today, or something I am thankful for, someone I am thankful for, I felt good when, or I was proud of myself when. But have them write something down positive like that about their holiday, or about maybe this could be good because they're coming back to school, maybe writing down what they're most looking forward to in this semester, and then put them in a jar. And they can be anonymous, they can have kids' names on them, however you want to do it, but put them in a jar collectively. And then maybe at the end of each school day, or maybe every Friday afternoon, you draw a few out and you share them with the class. And this just helps the students be mindful of the unique experiences that they had over the break and that they are feeling returning to school. And it really just kind of helps remind them to be appreciative for what they have, like I said, instead of focusing on what they lack. And I think it's really fun to hear what other people are thankful for. We did that, like I said, we did that in my office over Thanksgiving, and it was really fun, and we loved sharing them with the campus too. And there was a great response to that. So I think that's a great practice, and kids would have fun with that too. And then you can always stay connected with us for even more mental health care information and self-care tips over the holidays. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. You can always learn more about us on our website, or you can email us. But of course, if you have any questions, want to learn more about today's session, you can always reach out to me as well, and I'll make sure that y'all have my information. But now I want to open it up to questions. I've saved just enough time to do that. I'm going to close out of my screen here so I can see y'all's faces. But I would love to hear from y'all if you have any questions or feedback for me.
I'll kick it off, Victoria. That was very interesting. And we do have several questions in the chat. So, but I know some people are beginning to drop off. They're probably getting close to the end of their lunch hour. So I put those links back in the chat. If you need a certificate, if you want to sign up for the mailing list, and for the evaluation, and to find the recording, all that's in the chat if y'all need to see that before you leave. But one of the questions I think you answered, and that was about the age of the people who can participate. So anyone under the age of 18 just needs a parent on that first call with them. Is that kind of
correct? So minors must have their guardian's consent to call, and the guardian does need to be on the phone call for that first phone call to our triage team. So that 501 number or the 800 number. And then when they do the intake appointment, so that 30-minute phone call also requires the guardian to be present. But then once they get to the diagnostic assessment portion, which is the first video session with the therapist, it is important that the guardian be present for like the family history portion of that, to help understand all the factors that are contributing to the minor's mental health care. But then it's up to the therapist and the guardian to establish the safest, most appropriate way to proceed. And that's whether or not the guardian will be on the video sessions or just in the household or in the environment at the time of the service. And that's for safety concerns, of course.
Absolutely. So I know several of our educators are probably thinking, how could this benefit their students? So there's some information that you could share with them. They just need to interact with their parents.
Yes.
Another question, are there bilingual care coordinators?
Oh, that's a great question. So our care coordinators are, to my knowledge, they are not bilingual, but we do all have translator services available. So from the point of triage, that first phone call you make, they can phone in the translator right away. And then for all of the subsequent sessions or appointments with us, we can have translator services available. But for resources, I would have no doubt that we would still be able to coordinate that.
So someone of pretty much any language could make the call, and there's resources that could help them through that process.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know the languages that are supported?
Oh gosh, definitely Spanish, French. I could find the list. But many.
I know we've got a
ASL.
Okay.
Sign language. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. We may get that list, and I can send it out to people so that they know if language is a barrier for them. They're asking if they can have a copy of the PowerPoint. I know we are recording it, but I didn't know if you'd be able to share the PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I can provide a PDF version of it. Absolutely.
Okay. What I'll do is once I have all the certificates finished and everything's kind of cleaned up, I'll send an email to everybody and let you know, hey, we're done. Certificates are available. And I'll make sure that any follow-up questions or materials like the PowerPoint is attached to that as well. There was one, are therapy appointments scheduled only during the day, or can they be scheduled after hours to accommodate work schedules?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So typically our virtual clinic hours are from 8:30 to 4:30 or 5, but we do have some extended hours for like a 5 or 6 o'clock session. Those are obviously fewer than the daytime, but we do understand that there's that need. So those are available. But then also, because the assessment is that the diagnostic part is up to 2 hours of time, we do have openings for those or for intake appointments as well on Saturdays from 10 to 2, in case that were to help because of childcare, work, etc.
Okay. And then this was about the insurance. So if you don't have to have insurance, but if you do have it, do you have to provide that information? I know there's still kind of a stigma sometimes with it.
Right. So technically, if we know that you have insurance, yes, you would need to present that information. If you don't have insurance, still no cost, no hassle for our patients. If you do have it, we will have to follow the guidelines of the number of visits, that you are allowed for behavioral health, mental health services, but you won't pay a copay and you still won't get any bill outside of what your insurance covers.
Okay. And then I think I saw one in here. You did mention ASL. So we've got someone from the School for the Deaf,
Yes.
And they're asking you can support deaf students and deaf parents.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Make sure. Lots of accolades are coming in through the chat. Great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Several things that you said were just so touching to me because, as educators, we see a lot of this with our students. We see a lot of this with our students' parents. But, just speaking to educators and y'all, I'm one of you. We are this same group. We need these mental health supports ourselves. So the talk about being able to, set those boundaries, give yourself permission to set those boundaries. Tell your superintendent that you were on a workshop and the State Department said it's okay for you to set boundaries, because that's how we're going to keep ourselves grounded and able to keep working with our students. our profession is really hurting right now through the pandemic and through everything that's going on, and we've got to start taking care of ourselves. Um, as a as a Jones, the phrase, you're always trying to keep up with the Joneses. Well, as a Jones, let me tell you, I'm not in front of you, I'm behind you trying to figure out who I'm keeping up with anyway. So don't compare what you're doing in your classroom to what someone else is doing. Someone may have their decorations already up and you're still trying to figure out, can you put up a door decoration? Don't compare yourself to another classroom, to another teacher, or to anyone else that's going on, because we're all just walking this together. And I know all of us are doing the best that we can. So yes, the PowerPoint will be shared. I will make sure and put that in the email as a follow-up. You'll get that this afternoon. Is there somewhere to print a flyer that we can post in the break rooms?
Yeah, so I have digital copies. I'd be happy to provide those to anybody, everybody, but I also have printed materials accessible. I mean, all this behind me, I've got the posters, we've got business cards that are super convenient and very discreet size, to pass out to people. We have half-size flyers that have some of our frequently asked questions on them, and it really helps outline what to expect when you call us too. So I can mail those, deliver them depending on where you are. I can certainly provide digital copies. I hate to ask y'all to print so many of them when we can cover that within reason. But yeah, just let me know. I'd be happy to provide all those materials. And Suzanne, if that means sending them to you, or if we could, share the contact sheet or something, I'd be happy to do that.
Absolutely. I can share the sign-in sheet for today, which includes the names in the schools. And then I can always email this group as a whole. So any information you want to get to this group, I can certainly send out. I'm scanning back through to make sure I didn't miss anything else.
I'm going to put my email in the group chat for everyone, just to have.
Perfect.
As well as my work cell phone. Please feel free to email or call me. I will be happy to help.
A couple other questions. Do your clients have access to medication management?
Oh, yes, we do. And that's through our psychiatrists that we have available. And actually a lot of I say a lot, we have several psychiatrists available to our team, and many of them do offer evening times as well. So that wouldn't necessarily be the therapy visit, but we do have, because I know medication management is extremely important, we do have a lot of after hours appointments with psychiatrists available.
Okay, good. Someone said, where do we send an address for mailing? So Victoria has put in her email address and her phone number. If you're looking for information directly from AR Connect, like the flyers that she mentioned, please reach out to her and work through that. And Victoria, if you start getting a large number, or if there's anything I can do to assist, just let me know. But I'll let y'all work out the handouts. And then, does AR Connect present to schools? Does AR Connect make requested PowerPoints regarding mental health issues? So do you have any presentations that you would do for students, or can you help provide information for PowerPoint?
I am confident that we could certainly adapt a presentation for a student body if the school, I mean, again, I know that I would never want to overstep services that are in place already at a school, but if the school were to approach and request that, I'd be happy to adapt a presentation specifically for a student body or particular age range. I gave one to some faculty at Little Rock Elementary School just this week. So I'm always happy to do that. So yes, we can present to schools.
And again, just use Victoria's contact information and reach out to her directly. Do you have images best to use for social media platforms for students from a school-based health center? So I guess like social media posts.
Okay.
Help with that?
Yeah, we do have some Instagram posts and Facebook content that I'd be happy to share with y'all. I just ask that you not crop our logo or grant information on any of the materials that we do share with y'all to repost. That's just because it's required information on our things. We want to recognize all of the funding that they all the things they provide for us with that funding. But yes, I can certainly, if you'll look us up on Instagram at UAMS_AR Connect, and then Facebook is UAMS AR Connect without any spaces. And you'll see some samples of that. And some of them are catered towards specific diagnoses or topics, like how to balance your Thanksgiving was a fun one we did. I've got a lot of fun content that I'll be posting in the next couple of weeks about, tickets to a stress-free holiday, and it's based on the Polar Express. So something like that could be appropriate for schools.
Okay. If I have missed a question that you put in the chat, would you re-enter it? Because I'm scrolling back through and I think I've got them all. Or if you have any other questions, feel free to go ahead and pop them in. We are right at 12:30. And so thank you all for hanging with us. If there's any more questions that come in, we'll answer them. But could you please repeat the Instagram and Facebook links?
Yes.
Again, I do appreciate that y'all took the time to be here for yourselves. I told Victoria, when we were kind of getting started, that I had a couple people calling and asking, could their spouse watch, or could their sister watch, or could some other people in the community watch? So please feel free to share this recording with anyone that you think would benefit from it. Share the information about AR Connect, because that is a statewide platform. But I have to say this: there was one person who called, and she was in a school, and she knew that there was a teacher that needed this information, that needed to be in this session. So she called and asked and said, if I register under my name, but I go down and watch her class, can she come and just come sit and watch in? So to me, that says we're watching out for each other. And that's what we need in our schools. Educators, we need to watch out for each other. We need to watch out for ourselves. We're very good at watching out for our students, but don't forget that the adults in the building, including yourself, need some help from time to time as well. And we're all here to give that to each other. So thank you for joining us. If you're having to pop off, I'll get your certificates done. And if there's nothing else that you have for Miss Victoria, we'll say thank you again for being with us. This was a great presentation, and probably the beginning of many. Well, I think you've got a lot of information that's good for our schools and our teachers.
Well, and thank you again so much for having me and sharing your lunch hour with me. I know that time is limited, especially as teachers. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that you're able to take some of this away with you and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thanks, everyone.